Hi, nice to see you. I have no clue how you ended up here, but let me keep you for a minute while we're at it, yeah? So, this is the first video on my channel, where I plan to cover misinformation and conspiracies wherever science is being denied in the favor of a personal agenda. I know a lot of these channels already exist, but maybe you'll find me worthwhile. I mean, I have catcalls, am I right? For my first topic, I chose a video from the Flat Earth realm. It's nothing major, but you gotta start somewhere. It's a video from a channel called Level Earth Observer, and the video itself is named The Weekly Space Report. So, without further ado, let's hop right in.
Morning all, hope everyone's well. Got quite a few things to look at this morning. Balloon footage, horizon tests, ISS transits, pictures, black holes and telescopes. So let's get cracking.
Thanks mate, I'm fine. Hope you're doing well too. That sounds like a lot of topics for such a short video, so let's not waste any time.
First up, we got this high altitude balloon footage, which is approximately 20 miles up. Just have a little look at this. Put the sound down, but if you want to see the original of this, it's on my channel, link in the description. This one's for the globies. Obviously pay particular attention to the horizon, and of course the sun, and of course the sunspot beneath the sun. Pay particular attention to the sun's position above the horizon, how close it is. And of course the horizon itself is rather revealing. And of course we know this footage is demonstrably true, i.e. we can test and verify this observation and confirm that it is demonstrably true. I'm just going to pause it there.
So, I see two major claims. The first one is about the sun's location and the apparently lacking curvature of the Earth. And the other one about the high speeds we're supposed to be moving at, but not noticing at all. First off, this balloon is about 20 miles in the air, or about 32 kilometers. This is not even out of the stratosphere, and only about 0.25% of the Earth's diameter, which is 12,742 kilometers by the way. If the Earth were a football, this distance would be smaller than the tiniest ant known to man. But instead of playing the numbers game, we can just calculate how far you'd be able to see. So, I've put this together very quickly, but here's a rough sketch of your balloon, obviously not to scale. Here is where the horizon must be, and this horizon must be tangential to the Earth's circumference. Therefore, this must be in right angle, and this will allow us to use the Pythagorean theorem. And in doing so, we can calculate a distance of 640 kilometers, and just to check it, we can also plug it in a website called earthcurvature.com, and this confirms our calculation. Now, that sounds like a big number, but that's actually only about 1.5% of the Earth's circumference, or a curvature of below 6 degrees. That's barely visible to the naked eye, if at all. Nothing unexpected. And by the way, here's the same drawing, at least somewhat to scale. Now, about the sun. How would you even try to deduce the distance just of this one picture? Now, I'm not an expert in photography by any means, but I believe this to be called a lens flare. Let's just read the first explanation I found online. Lens flare is a photographic phenomenon in which bright light enters the camera lens, hits the camera sensor, and scatters. Lens flare is a response to a bright, non-image forming light like the sun, a full moon, or artificial lighting which appears on the photo in the form of a haze or a starburst. Lens flare can also happen when a bright light source becomes partially obscured by an object or person. Take my phone's flashlight for example. Would you argue that the right side of this picture is significantly closer to the camera than the left? Well, you'd be wrong, because it's the same distance, but the light lets it appear much larger. About the sunspot, I don't even know what this is supposed to show. Local sun? I don't know. It's only light reflecting in a somewhat funny way. Even more, it looks almost like some sort of giant laser beam, so what's the suggestion here? That a very small and local part of the Earth is getting cooked alive? Well, that's called global warming, and it happens all around the globe. Lastly, I'll just take your numbers for granted, but I have no clue how we should move in different directions. You can't move in different directions at once. You can have a velocity in different directions applied to you, but after adding all velocity vectors together, you'll only have one vector left, which is the one direction you're actually moving to. Furthermore, why would we feel it? Simplified, you can only feel something if it applies a force on you. But as all static objects around you move with you at the same speed, there is no force to be applied, which is supported by the formula of F equals m times a. You and any object by default move at a constant velocity, and therefore have no resulting acceleration. And it means the force equals 0. Only if an object differs in its velocity, you are able to feel it, like wind or when you stub your toe. And the reason we move at those constant velocities is called Newton's first law of motion.
Now we're going to have a quick peep at a simple horizon test showing two different viewpoints. One, a balloon going up and viewing a level Earth. Two, a balloon going up supposedly above a sphere Earth. And of course, one is realistically demonstrably true, the other is just pure fantasy. Great example. I'm not sure if it's exactly to scale, but of course, one represents reality on the right, the other on the left is a pure fantasy.
Ignoring the fact that you'd also expect the horizon to drop on a flat Earth, because flat Earth isn't infinite, this is right. We would expect this, we do expect this, and it does happen. But you just won't see it on a fucking balloon. Let me show you something. We are now in Kerbal Space Program. It's, as the name suggests, a game about space. Now, it's a game and not the best representation, but for visuals, it's the best thing I have. So now we're in the game with our trusty pilot, Jebediah Kerman, who volunteered for this demonstration. So let's just see what happens. I have to move this one out of the way first. As we see, the dropping of the horizon is something we'd expect on a globe Earth, and you'd be able to see it once you're high enough. If you keep in mind that Kerbal Space Program is roughly 1/10 to scale with our world, this is the equivalent height of your balloon. It was about 32 kilometers in KSP that we saw the horizon noticeably sink below eye level, and it almost disappeared at around 150 kilometers. This is equal to around 1,500 kilometers in real life.
I mean, if it wasn't obvious before, which it should have been, it should be rather obvious now. Right? But we're going to continue highlighting obvious things here that really should spell this out for you.
No, not at all. It wasn't obvious in the slightest, but let's continue anyway.
So now I'm over at Scott Manley's channel. Scott is a globe fantasist and a super space fan. I got to be honest, he's quite a nice fella. But he's got an ISS transit here. We'll have a quick look at this clip.
This is probably the only point I agree with you. Scott Manley is indeed a nice fella. I'm actually somewhat of a fan, although I mostly watch his KSB content. I enjoy his other stuff as well. He obviously doesn't need me to defend him or anything, which isn't my goal in the first place. But if you ever come across this, Scott, love what you're doing, man. I mean, it's allowed to dream, isn't it?
And I think we'll pause it there.
I will. Seems perfectly fine to me. Probably done with a decent telescope and way clearer than your balloon picture. Because that's what you have to do if you want to accurately photograph the sun. You need to redirect most of the light. That's why everything else is pitch black, by the way. No lens effect or anything. Go on.
Now let's go back to the balloon observation, which of course is demonstrably true. So now I've quickly recreated Scott's observation. Here's Scott, the globe fantasist. Here's his space station, which is more likely a high altitude drone or plane, and then of course the sun behind it. But just looking at that just shows you how ridiculous this is. Their interpretations of these sky observations are based purely on fantasy. Again, no one denies we see something in the sky. What we see is more than likely, like I say, high altitude drone. I should imagine they've got several, 3, 4 of them, based across the earth that fly. There's no point trying to fool sailors who will be looking up at the ISS when they're at sea. So they don't need to fool anyone across the sea. It's all about the main continents. And I should imagine there's a base nearby the main continents that participates in this charade.
So your argument here is the globe fantasists are just interpreting the observations wrong? If that's the case, that means the observations themselves are true, but you fail to explain where they went wrong. You can show how you know that you're the one interpreting them right. Instead, you ramble about fooling people on the continents, multiple thrones, and a secret base. Not only can't you back it up at all, it throws up just so many questions. How do they organize these thrones that they are always in the predicted spot for a potential observer? Why has no one seen the ISS at multiple places at the same time? How are they orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes, which would make them almost 4 times faster than the current airspeed record? What about storms and weather? Why has no one ever seen them land? Only way I see to dodge these problems is to put them high up, way out of the thickest part of the atmosphere. But if you can do that, why not just put a real station there? Even on a flat Earth, I'm sure there would be a benefit to that. Which sounds like a fantasy now.
Of course, we've got the sun, clearly not 93 million miles away. We've got the Earth, clearly and obviously not a ball, based on the horizon. And of course, the lack of horizon drop, i.e. none. And of course, then I put in Scott's observation against reality. And it kind of highlights the absurdity of his interpretation of his observation. Mad.
I am skipping the rest of this video, it's already taking way too long. And it's basically about how easy it is to fake space missions with modern green screen. His example itself not being the best, I agree in general. CGI has become amazing in the last years, but that's no argument. Not everything that can be faked is fake. And why would they fake it anyway? That's a question I've never seen answered. It's like with religion, you are perfectly fine to believe something, but when you start making definitive statements, you need to back them up, which you didn't. Show what they faked and why they faked it. And even if all space missions were fake, you'd have discovered a huge fraud, but not disproven the heliocentric model. The model still works, the science still works, and the evidence still points there. The heliocentric model hasn't been around so long for no reason. As you can see, there are no arguments left to react to. I've linked this video so you can check out if I misrepresented him in any way, shape or form, and I thank you truly if you watched this video till the end. I wish you a great day and hopefully see you next time.